Okay, and we are good to go. Good. Here we go. Okay, there's that. And let me check. There we go. Yep. We're going to go there. Hold on. Okay, here we go. All right. What else did I have? Oh, good. Yes. And what a busy Monday it is. All right. We are live. Well, we're live now, but I mean, we begin in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Yes. JR says we're good to go. I like hearing that. Folks, the latest, I have no idea why. Well, actually, I do know why. Why more are not on the Pawtucket firefighter story. It's a big story. I think it's because a lot of them don't have it, but I'm going to start off with that. We're also going to speak with Justin Katz, Media Janitor for anchorrising.com, our segment Politics this week, and there's a lot. So, excuse me if I'm not falling over that the Senate president, who has misled people for the past 2 years on his health condition, has suddenly, they were lying on Wednesday about it. You watch, the rest of the media will all just fall in line and raving about him and so forth. But yes, all right. Let me check one more. I believe we should be live on X. And we are. Hold on. Here we go. That looks funny. I think we're good. Let me just double check. Okay. Wait a minute. Let's go there. And then we'll just check our YouTube connection. There we go. I think it all sounds good. Okay. Yes. Say something. Let's go there. Yes. And we'll just check our YouTube all right. Connection. That sounds fine. That's on X, which continues. Yes. There's Bendy. Folks, big week. I was supposed to be on Newsmax this morning, and we got bumped because of the Pope coverage, which is fine. I'm supposed to be on Newsmax. Court TV tomorrow. Bendy doesn't know this yet, and I believe Fox, on Wednesday. So we'll bring you up to speed on everything. All right, but we are set to begin. Does that make me a Fox News contributor? Not exactly. No. All right, we are standing by for JR to give us the go-ahead. And we shall commence our program on what turned into, it's a nice Monday. I know in Massachusetts, Patriots Day with the marathon. We'll see which Kenyan is going to win this year. I'm not sure I fully understand that. And then I believe, and that's right. And we're live. We are at 1:06. Good afternoon, one and all. Happy Patriots Day. All of our Massachusetts listeners and followers. Yes, no work in Massachusetts today. That's a nice day. We were talking about it over the weekend. So Rhode Island has Victory over Japan Day in August, which is a nice time to have a 3-day weekend. Massachusetts has Patriots Day, and that is today with the running of the Boston Marathon. Excuse me. And then the Karen Reed retrial tomorrow, folks, this portion of our program, but right now, we are live on AM 1380 and 99.9 FM. But wait, there's more. You can also watch us live 1 to 2. We are live right now on our Facebook page, on X, and also on our YouTube page. And many times, some of these clips make their way to our Instagram page, sometimes TikTok, what have you. But this portion of the program is brought to you by PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Folks, Rhode Island's #1 garden center. They are open. They're off to a great start for the season. Beautiful selection of pansies, pansy flats, pansy bags, hangers and hangers and bowls, assorted colors. They have tulips, hyacinthus, daffodils, hydrangeas. They're open 7 days a week. Hydrangeas, which I just think it makes a property. A property pops when you have beautiful hydrangea, blue, white, and pink. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. They're open 7 days a week. Gift certificates are also available. They have a great Facebook page. Look for them. 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Now, DePietro.com, which is certainly, if you haven't checked it out, everyone's buzzing about it. That is the talk, primarily because of the Pawtucket firefighter story, which I'm going to touch on. But DePietro.com, brought to you by the Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue, West Warwick, lunch, dinner, drinks in the lounge. Plus, they have the market at Coesit, the Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue, West Warwick. So I want to start off with that on this Monday. Then we're going to speak with Justin Katz, our segment Politics this week. And there is big news, in a sense, I guess, history, in a sense, with local politics that we'll talk about. But I want to just draw your attention to DePietro.com, which is very adequate. I mean, I juggled so many different platforms. Having the website kind of keeps it all together. And we also use it in one spot that we can break news. So some of the headlines: who is the Pawtucket firefighter drug kingpin? I know that answer. Bombshell: were Pawtucket firefighters dealing drugs? Apparently, yes. Also on DePietro.com, 8 Pawtucket firefighters fired for cannabis use while on duty. And then also, when we had the exclusive, Pawtucket firefighters accused of consuming cannabis on duty. So we broke that story on April 12th. It was a Saturday, right? Yeah, Saturday, April 12th, 14, right. April 12th, that Saturday. And then since then, and I want to just touch on this a little bit, because some of the comments, folks, we are going to talk to Justin Katz coming up at 1:15, and our segment will commence, which is Politics This Week with Justin Katz, managing editor at anchorrising.com. But I want to just touch on what's interesting to me, a couple observations. So first of all, some of the comments of people making, get a job. Well, get a job is, what is that? What are you talking about? I have a full-time job. I am a full-time member of the media, those that follow. And it's actually going very well. As I said, I was supposed to be on Newsmax today. We got bumped because of the Pope. We'll be back on, although we did speak with the CEO of Newsmax, Chris Ruddy. We're on Court TV tomorrow. We're going to be on Court TV a lot during the retrial. I'm pretty sure I'm taping something with Fox on Wednesday night. My point is, I mean, as an independent, I'm the brand. By all accounts, that's going well. But let's talk about what I'm not hearing. I'm not hearing anyone, police or any first responder. I don't hear anyone contacting me that I've spoken to. I've spoken to a number of first responders who I won't mention who, but no one is saying, nope, I don't believe that. No one is saying, no, that story is wrong. I think some people haven't followed the story. I've had people, why is all this information on DePietro.com and I'm not reading it in the Providence Journal? Ask the Providence Journal. That's that. Well, we do know. And then I like these comments. Innocent until proven guilty. 8 of them are gone. 8 firefighters are gone. So this business of 4 of them resigned immediately, and then the other 4 essentially were terminated. That's not an easy thing to do. We have no reason to believe that the city and the mayor would do something like that if they were not on solid ground. The union is silent right now. The firefighters union is silent. Now, I am hearing from other people. Now the allegations get even a little more disturbing, such as there are people that claim that they had medications taken from their homes/apartments in Pawtucket after some of the Pawtucket firefighters had been in there. Now, that part I don't know, but there's a lot more to go with this story. But if you're one of those people, this is fake news, you're I don't know what to tell you other than that's like a lazy, predictable. You're not capturing what this story is. You don't. If this were totally unfounded, if this were completely false, they had it 100% wrong. Don't you think the Pawtucket firefighters, and for that matter, don't you think all firefighters would be out there protesting? Where are the protests? For those of you that are still like some of those Japanese soldiers that they found in the islands in the Pacific, where are they? Other than it is true. Now, I'm not saying all were dealing, but the city certainly seems to feel they have solid evidence that they were both using and selling drugs. And it's the selling that is problematic, and it's the using while on duty that is problematic. And then there are some other stories. I mentioned two years ago, March of 23, that incident of the guy in the snowbank. And one of those firefighters, Terry O'Neill, was suspended for 90 days. By the way, let me cut to the chase. I'm well aware that if you go on the Channel 10 or Channel 12 website, or the Providence Journal, or anyone for that matter, probably even the Valley Breeze, that you're not going to find his name regarding in tied to this. But here's a question. Terry O'Neill with the O'Neill Funeral Home in Pawtucket. Why did he resign? I think he was the first one to resign. Why did he resign? I don't know the answer to that. We'll get it at some point. Let's talk about what are the facts right now. Disturbing allegations. The city, the mayor saying criminal conduct. The city and the mayor saying a criminal investigation. And what's not coming out, but people, and I want to give credit to the Valley Breeze, although we had it first, they're on the story and they're mentioning it. And it has to do with use of and selling of drugs. So now there's some dispute as to what type of drugs. I agree. But some of the people that go to this immediate defense, this is the Valley Breeze now. I'll step back. 8 Pawtucket firefighters out amid criminal allegations. If you want to start attacking the Valley Breeze, then go ahead. Attack the Valley Breeze. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It obviously doesn't mean they're wrong. So, but it's not as though they're there trying to do their job and these allegations came up. The Valley Breeze, Ethan Shorey, 8 city firefighters are out of a job, alleged committing criminal acts while on duty. Now, according to 3 sources with firsthand knowledge, the actions are related to drug-related offenses by rank-and-file firefighters and ranking members, including dealing and using. So, for those that want to just say fake news, well, it's not fake news. There are 8 of them out. As far as innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, that's true. But apparently 4 of them right out of the box were not waiting to see where this was going to go. And they immediately stepped down. Will there be charges brought here? I don't know about that. I don't know. But it's very serious allegations, obviously. And it's the use and dealing of it. I've heard very, very reliable, locked-in source. You could call one of the stations and they had a menu. Yeah, it's embarrassing and it's terrible, and it is a terrible breach of the public trust. Folks, Politics This Week with Justin Katz is brought to you by Propane Plus. Remember, all your heating and cooling, call Propane Plus today at 885-4209. In Massachusetts, 508-252-3359. Propane Plus for all your heating and cooling. They also have a very user-friendly website. It's propaneplus.com. You just log on, residential or commercial, put in your zip code. You can depend on Propane Plus. Again, for all your propane needs, call Propane Plus, 401-885-4209. Well, folks, let's bring him on. He is the managing editor of anchorrising.com, and we talk to him every Monday. Our segment is Politics This Week, and we say good afternoon to Justin Katz. Good afternoon, Justin.
Happy Easter. Happy Easter. I hope you're well.
Okay, good afternoon, Justin. Okay. Good afternoon, Justin.
Good afternoon, John. Happy Easter.
There you are. All right, good. Justin, why don't we start off? This is it is the big story. It is it's unusual that we have the death of a pope, but also let's talk about the death of Senate President Dominic Ruggerio. I find it interesting. You and I have talked about this. He has basically been absent from the State House. He made a very brief appearance about a week ago. They were on April break. He was supposed to be returning this week. Then there was some reporting that he was back at Fatima Hospital. And now we find out at the age of 76, as the sitting president of the Rhode Island Senate, Dominic Ruggerio has passed away. There's some different facets to this, but I'd like to just start with your general reaction.
Well, first of all, obviously we should offer condolences to his family. But as a practical matter, we've seen this coming. I mean, he hasn't been able to make it to sessions. He's looked very ill when he's made public appearances, and so it's not surprising that this has come to pass at some point during the session. And it just seems like in that regard, it seems like we shouldn't be surprised by his death, and it shouldn't throw Rhode Island government into any kind of turmoil or competition, because we should be able to adjust in advance when we see these things coming, as we have.
I think it's also, I mean, I was reflecting a little bit. It's hard to ignore, Justin, that there's a new book out, Fight, 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 and it has to do with the great lengths in which the Democrat Party went to protect President Joe Biden, who should not have been running for re-election, was ultimately forced out of the race. I don't know. I come away from this a little bit that they were not forthcoming to me with just how serious his health battles were, because they kept touting that he was in fact going to be back at the State House. And I think it was Ted Nesi that discovered he was actually back in the hospital, of which it sounds like he never emerged.
Yeah, right. And in a world where all the elite types are talking about fake news and how you can't, internet news is not reliable. They again and again, I mean, you mentioned Joe Biden, again and again, they insist we deny what we can see with our own eyes. And as I said, Senate President Ruggerio was not able to make it to sessions. He looked ill. He looked like somebody who maybe should be taking time to be concerned about his health and not be on a job. And so that shows you for some reason, the Democrat Party seems to think it should just keep people in office no matter what. And it makes you wonder, do they really not have anybody that's satisfactory to come up behind these figures? Or does it really not matter who sits in these seats, because it's really just a partisan machine that's running the whole thing anyway, so they might as well keep the person in there as long as they possibly can? And those sorts of questions you would think would be of heightened concern during a time when all we hear from a lot of the people in media and politics is democracy and rule of law and all that stuff. We shouldn't be asked to deny our eyes when those are our priorities.
I think it shows, Justin, that the special interests that controlled the system and controlled him, they were perfectly content the fact that he was obviously very ill, obviously not also able to serve. Ryan Pearson had a falling out with him. He was his number two. He got pushed out, and the reason why he had approached the Senate president was over health concerns. So to me, Ryan Pearson was on the money, and I think it shows that if the special interest had their way, although he passed away, he could be in a full-time residence care home, and they were content to still say he's still the leader.
Oh, certainly. And that's because at this point, as we've noticed on a variety of issues, in particular the relationships with the governor and the labor unions, they're running the state right now. I mean, there's no real doubt about it. And so it makes you wonder, were they just setting up an heir apparent in somebody like Valerie Lawson, who's the head of the NEA, the teachers union in Rhode Island? Was it just keep him in office so that they have an excuse to put her in there to follow up? We'll see, but it does
Yeah.
show you that the person in the seat is not important because it's run by this cabal of special interests and partisans.
Yes. And let's talk about, and again, folks, our guest is Justin Katz, managing editor, anchorrising.com. Our segment is politics this week. Let's talk about that. And I want to separate the two because I didn't know him personally. I think I met him once. I only knew him as the laborers and then the powerful senator. But if we just step back and what you just said, Justin, that's actually a very good point. You wonder if they were just trying to buy time to give her a chance to get acclimated and make some deals and promises. But I always viewed him as his leadership as the head of the Senate from Labor's International. But what no one seems to even want to talk about is what a detriment it was to the state, because any company, private industry that thought of coming here, and then this is the guy you got to cut a deal with, which means everything's got to be unionized, everything's got to be Labor's International. I saw him as a deterrent to private enterprise. And I also felt his efforts were a detriment to the state with trying to attract a healthy and have a healthy private sector. You're not going to hear any of that, but I just could never get past the fact that he was a walking conflict of interest with his role with the laborers and then as the Senate president.
Right. I think back to it seems almost quaint now, but something like 15, 20 years ago when the Ethics Commission ruled that members of labor unions who were on, say, school committees could vote on their own union's contracts as long as it was a different local. And it was all just broad. It wasn't a specific corruption. And so it was allowed. And I think that moment is when I sort of start the clock on a lot of this change, where we get to, nobody raises the question that this high up executive of the Laborers International Union was the Senate president. I mean, that ought to be just something that makes everybody kind of cringe, and as you say, makes you worry about the effect on the attitude of businesses in the state. And I think it goes back to, not only would you mentioned Valerie Lawson maybe getting acclimated, but there's also a different environment, and this is how I see it as how they start to control the messaging. If Dominic Ruggiero said, you know what, I'm not feeling great last year, I'm going to back away and let somebody else take the Senate presidency, there would be a long debate about it. There'd be discussion. Ryan Pearson would put his name out. There'd be public viewing of all the potential candidates. Whereas if he sort of dies in office, it's, oh, well, we got to have somebody. We're in the middle of a session. Valerie, here you go. It changes the whole dynamic away from a sort of democratic process where we get to select our leaders. And I think that's part of what they're doing, to just distract us from the fact that we're being run by basically the state's biggest special interests.
That is an excellent point. And I realize right now, a lot of people that are listening and watching, they don't necessarily know the name Val Lawson. But what you should know is, there's different times that people seem to wake up and they say, what's going on around here? And how could it get this way? She should not even be up for the possibility that she would be the Senate president. She is the president of NEA Rhode Island, which is the state's largest teachers union. It is disgraceful the people of East Providence even put her in office, but this would be the teachers union, the public schools in the state, Justin, of which they control, are a complete failure. They're a complete disaster. So the thought that the president of the NEA Rhode Island would now be the Senate president, she wouldn't be up there to represent the people of East Providence. She wouldn't even be up there to represent the people of Rhode Island. She would be there to usher in labor, creating different ordinances to laws to protect them and get more for their members. And this is someone, and I just think that people ought to be very outspoken about it, whether it's the Republican Party or the media. This will be a disgrace if Val Lawson becomes the Senate president.
Right. And, there's no real counterfactual in Rhode Island anymore, but you could imagine if, say, the head of the Providence Chamber of Commerce or something like that not only became a senator, but then were going to become the Senate president, and maybe not even leave the job with the chamber, it would be obvious to a lot of people in Rhode Island media and on the left in Rhode Island that that's just not appropriate for that to happen. But that's what we see increasingly in Rhode Island, where we're being governed by the people who take taxpayer dollars, and that's pretty much it, top to bottom. We just have to suck it up and or leave.
Folks, again, our segment is politics this week. Justin, I am curious if you have any thought on the situation with the Pawtucket firefighters. It's not. I'm not going to say the local news has ignored it. There's still a lot of details that people don't have, but this is one of those things. And you and I have seen, if somebody leaves some kind of a racist sticker on a telephone pole, Governor McKee and the other rest of them, Matos, the whole thing, they'd be up there the next day having a press conference. This type of thing can't be tolerated. According to the city officials in Pawtucket, of which Mayor Grabian is a good friend of his, they have terminated 8 firefighters for use in selling of drugs while on duty. And I know we shouldn't be surprised, but just what's your reaction? No one, not one public official has commented on it.
Well, my first reaction is I don't know if I was just too distracted, but it's a story that kind of slipped under my radar. So I'll have to look into it. But it seems like, again, looking back, what I'm finding more and more surprising this year, and more than last year even, is how many of these kind of stories they once would have been the bread and butter of local news media just aren't treated as such a big deal now. We're getting plenty of WPRI articles about tariffs or what have you from Donald Trump, but a lot of this local important local news just isn't being reported, and that's one story I need to catch up on. But it is telling that we're not getting this constant flow of these things, and maybe it's because it used to be every town had its own newspaper daily, and then the Providence Journal would collect all that and make it statewide, and that's just not happening anymore. But it shows a giant gap in our news coverage.
East Bay Media Group, members of the Barrington Town Council voted to adopt a resolution declaring Barrington a sanctuary town for transgender people and all members of LGBTQIA 25+ community and their allies. Justin, what is your thought on that?
Well, it's 2S plus. Just to be, I think it can't be taken seriously.
Oh, 2S. Okay, yeah. All right. I thought it was 25.
But it's exactly. But the error is exactly on point. I would like to see the news media go up to these town council members in Barrington and say, what does each of those letters stand for, and what does it mean? Because I guarantee you, not one of them could get 100% on that quiz, which shows you it's not a serious thing. It's just virtue signaling. And it's an embarrassment to Barrington, which once was one of the two. When people with some money from out of state would come in and look for real estate, the realtors would bring them to East Greenwich and Barrington and say, you want one of these two. But now you've got this kind of clown show on the town council in Barrington, where what does that even mean? You're a sanctuary town for these people. And I love the plus. It's like, just in case we forgot anyone, why don't you just say non-cis normal people or something like that, and just be upfront about it. And it's just so they look good in front of their neighbors. And if I were a Barrington resident, I'd be very concerned about my housing values, and especially the education in the district, in the school district, because with people like this in charge.
Yes. What does it even mean? I mean, I'm unfamiliar if there's been any incident. What does this mean about Warren or East Providence? Are they not sanctuaries? What no one would even question is, what laws that are in place right now don't exist both in the country and in the state that you would even need to adopt a resolution to say we are a sanctuary for these people. What happens if someone goes to Bristol? What if they go to Seekonk? Are they treated differently? Is there any evidence that anyone in that community has been treated differently? For the life of me, I missed whatever the town council discussion was. But to me, this is so, like, what is the purpose of this other than, Justin, I'll give you the final word. It's just complete identity politics.
It is. And the purpose is no different than, I'm sure some of these councilors have that yard sign in their front yards. In this house, we appreciate this and value that, and there's no hatred and all this stuff, those rainbow colored yard signs. It's just virtue signaling. There's nothing else There's nothing else to it. And it's not, I mean, if you look at the acronym, they all basically, once you get past the first three, they all basically mean the same thing. They're just different ways of saying, and they're people trying to feel unique. And it's for a state that's having so much trouble with infrastructure and education and all healthcare. You'd think something like this would be, and you know what it makes me think of in particular, though. A few weeks ago, we were talking about the left-wing protests and how there was an older couple interviewed for one of the local stories, and they said, "We're here because we're scared. We're afraid of what the Trump administration, MAGA, is going to do." That is what this is in part. Is if you have to declare sanctuary for some groups, you're implying that they have to have sanctuary from something, and that's what they're trying to create among their local followers. Is this idea that if we don't do this, they'll have nowhere to go, and they're being persecuted everywhere except here where we're good and righteous. And I think that's the goal, to make themselves feel better and to foster an environment of fear where they can keep getting these votes from people while undermining all of their rights and economic well-being.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, there's certain parts of the country, they set up beer traps. They set up beer traps if they're having a beer problem, or, I know someone that would set up squirrel traps if they had too many squirrels in their yard. They're just setting this up, even though there's been no incident or anyone that says they don't feel safe. I want to stay with the healthcare crisis before we get to Katz's Corner. There was a good panel discussion on newsmakers, and they talked about, I mean, it's a real crisis. Governor McKee's not doing anything, but it was also kind of laughable to me is Ted Nesi, Tim White, and they asked about the idea that URI is now going to build and become a med school. They don't. There's a tough time finding proper instructors at the Brown Medical School, and then the problem is they're not staying in the state because the reimbursement rates are so much higher out of state. This to me is one of those. It is a crisis. People can't find a general practitioner doctor, and that is something that only the state could do something about it, with make it more attractive, the number of students that go to Brown and then they pick up a residence somewhere else. But it is that's why you see the emergence of all these urgent cares and these other places. It's because people don't have a general practitioner doctor.
Yeah, and what it shows to me, where they talk about whether it's URI becoming a med school. Yeah, as you point out, Brown has a med school, and one of the bigger problems is that people don't stay. The doctors don't stay in Rhode Island; they go elsewhere. So we help to train them with our nonprofit status and donations to Brown or whatever it might be, and they go elsewhere and bring that investment from us to some other community elsewhere in the country. It's that, or I saw also McKee was talking about having all doctors and nurse facilities and anything medical submitting quarterly financial statements to the state, as if they're going to be able to look over their finances and help them along.
That's right.
Which is just a route to make things worse and make them investigate. And if doctors do something wrong on a form, it's another reason they wouldn't stay. And so what you see in both of these instances is Rhode Island's governing class, in which I include most of the media, just does not understand the problems. And so they actually come up with solutions that will make the problem worse. That's what this sort of thing is. They will actively make doctors go elsewhere while we pay to educate them. And then there's nothing in it. What they need to do is cut back on the insurance mandates. This 10, 15 years ago, this was another big thing I was on. We have so many insurance mandates, so many things that insurance has to pay for. It drives up the cost, drives up the complexity for doctors. We jumped with both feet into Obamacare. That has been detrimental. We've got Medicaid fraud throughout Illinois, Slater Hospital and state government, no doubt. And that's all contributing to this environment where doctors don't want to be here and patients don't use healthcare the way they should. And what's their solution? Oh, we're going to subsidize more. We're going to bring it more under government control, which if you look at the state government and how they run, I don't want them involved in my healthcare any more than they already are. Certainly there are too much already involved with it. Just like our infrastructure. We don't need a Washington Bridge of healthcare to happen in Rhode Island. And that's the stuff I just can't believe even the media around here just doesn't dig into it and see it.
The idea of a URI med school, I mean, right now they're talking about two high schools in Warwick would be $350 million. So what would be the cost with all the extra buildings of building something like this on the URI campus? It could go well over, it sounds like that would be north of a $1 billion project. And it's just what I thought it was. They don't have the proper staff that could maintain it and even run it. This would be another gift to labor. It'd be a no bid contract. It'd be a public labor agreement. And then it's like giving them a $1 billion contract to build something, even though they don't even have the personnel that could run it. Folks, it's time for Katz's Corner. This is a story that Justin Katz has found this week that he finds interesting. And what's the story this week, Justin Katz?
Well, you mentioned part of it earlier. The Pope, as well as Dominic Rivera, has died overnight, I guess, or in the morning. And what that brings to mind locally is we've just had appointed a new incoming bishop for the Catholic Church, Bruce Lewandowski, who is down in Baltimore. And what strikes me about this for a political talking segment is when I was studying Anchor Rising early on, we rated the top conservatives in Rhode Island, and our bishop at the time, Bishop Tobin, was number 2 on that list, right behind the conservative governor, Carcieri. And Lewandowski is part of a redemptorist order, which tends to be more on the liberation theology, Marxist colored side. So it's going to be interesting to see how that happens. But what's going to be even more interesting is I'm hearing a lot about increases in local church attendance, and a lot of young priests are very conservative and traditional in their points of view. So where this goes, I was kind of hoping Catholic Church could be kind of a bolster to Rhode Island as we sink farther and farther into this kind of left-wing mire that our government's bringing us to. But I'm not quite sure whether that's going to be the case. We'll have to see.
I like that a lot. Folks, again, he is the managing editor at anchorrising.com, our segment Politics this week, Justin Katz. Justin, excellent job as always, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you, John. Talk to you soon.
All right, folks, there it is. Justin Katz on the John DePietro show on this Monday. And we got a lot in. And believe me, with the Senate president, I understand, the speak no ill of the dead. And I'm going to respect that as far as the man himself. He's somebody's father and son and so forth. But just the future of the state Senate and who could end up replacing him, it's something that can't be ignored. And I'm going to explain why in just a moment. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by Arch Design Builders. Have you been thinking of redesigning part of your home? Call Arch Design Builders today, 401-207-4124, 401-207-4124, Arch Design Builders. It all starts with a conversation with Ed and Roxanne, and maybe it's for your kitchen, maybe it's for a bathroom, basement, deck, special project, home or business. Arch Design Builders. You're going to notice the arch difference. This is who you going to want to do business with. They've had clients, they start with a small project and it just grows from there. 401-207-4124, Arch Design Builders, and you can look for them on both Facebook and Instagram. Well, folks, good afternoon. And obviously, coverage of the Pope, that certainly takes a lot. And there will be plenty of coverage of that. Just looking ahead for the week, the Karen Reed opening arguments start tomorrow. And good, people can hear both sides. You're going to have 2 tremendous attorneys up there in Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan, who has the opportunity to deliver the opening argument for the ages. But Alan Jackson, the defense attorney, that guy that if you watch it or listen to it tomorrow, Alan Jackson, who's from LA, he was part of the first trial. He also handled Kevin Spacey on Pawtucket. He's handled Harvey Weinstein. Alan Jackson is very gifted, talented, and I'm curious to see how he maps it out. But we'll have full coverage tomorrow. Hank Brennan will start first, as a matter of fact. Let me just stay on schedule because someone did ask me about this, and it is Sean. Sean heard me talking about roofs. Sean needs a new roof. I encourage Sean to call Roof Co. Rhode Island. Provide the top level of service, prices you can afford. Call them at 401-868-7149. Roof Co. Rhode Island. They'd be happy to inspect your roof, home, residential or commercial, for wind damage and give you a free estimate. Maybe it's wind damage, maybe it's a leaky roof, missing, lifted, or curled shingles, granules in the gutter, damaged chimney flashing. Roof Co. Rhode Island. Are you thinking of a new roof? You are? Call them 401-868-7149. 7149. 401-868-7149 for Roofco, Rhode Island. So, without question, the big international story is the Pope. As far as locally, the big story is the Senate president who has passed away in office. I'm very interested to see who's going to replace him. But for some of the people, if you're unhappy with the direction the state is going, if you're unhappy with the direction of how the state got where it is, right now, and maybe you're unhappy with Governor McKee, a lot of people are. Who would become the Senate president? It factors into the equation because labor controls the Senate. It's all of the unions. And, I want you to think of someone that starts a business and they build their business, and it starts starts off as a family business, and then they hire 5 people, and then it becomes 25 people, and then it's 50 people, and then it's 100 people. And it's all the hard work that they put in, and they work 7 days a week, and they put everything they into it. And, wouldn't you know it, their product is taking off. And suddenly now they have 200 employees and they have another location. Then it grows even more to 400 employees and a third location. And now they're getting orders from all over. And what happens? Boom, 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 knock at the door. And who is it? The local union. Oh, we're going to take over your employees. And the business owner may say, well, no. I'm happy running. My employees love me. I started it ground up. I take care of them with health care. I've hired some of their kids. No. We're going to take over your employees. We're going to take over your business. And folks, what a lot of people, and it doesn't get the type of coverage it should, a lot of those businesses have said, well, then I'm out of here. Guess what? You're not taking over my employees. You're not. No, absolutely not. And they leave. A lot of the big tech companies, the unions try to go in there, but people at Amazon say, no, we like the way things are going at Amazon. Or the people at YouTube say, no, we're very happy with the way things are going. Or Google, for that matter. Or X with Elon Musk. So the fact that when does this end? When does the state Senate end? Where it's absolutely controlled by labor. And then all the bills they pass are all in an effort to just protect their members. The people that are up there, they're not there. Lawson's a good example. She's not there for the people of East Providence. She's not there for the people of Rhode Island. She's only there to represent all the union households and just try to pass through legislation that we have to pay for. In other states, it would be knocked out of the box. There are other states that would say, absolutely not. No way. Do you think President Trump would endorse a situation where the head of, let alone the teachers union, which is a total failure, with the public schools that so underperform? Do you think President Trump would say, yeah, I think that's a good idea? The opposite. President Trump would say, no way. President Trump wants to get rid of the Department of Education because it's failed so poorly. So if you are a supporter of charter schools, you don't want Val Lawson. If you're a supporter of Catholic schools, you don't want Val Lawson to be the next Senate president. If you're a President Trump supporter, you don't want Val Lawson, because it all just becomes a big money grab. That's all it is. It's not about education. It's about getting as much as they can for their employees. And Providence is a good example where it's basically expensive daycare. That's what's going on. There's nobody learning, and no one can figure out how to take on the teachers union, but it's a total disaster. So you have that Mary Beth Calabro and you have that Val Lawson, who, they're on the same team. Randy Weingarten, President Trump, he's blowing the whole thing up. And all the radical agenda that they want in the public schools. Do you really, these women, they're in favor of, no, men should be allowed to use the ladies' room. Val Lawson and Calabro. No, boys should be able to compete against girls. They're fully on board with that stuff. All of the classrooms that have a big BLM flag in them, they're the most extreme. That's their religion. They're also the ones, they fought a lot of the legislation against teachers. Think of that North Kingstown, the naked fat test coach. I think one of the most telling things is the athletic director or one of the coaches, he saw a boy in the classroom with his shirt off and he was taking his pants off. And then the male teacher closed the door and he testified it was against union guidelines for me to say anything. Folks, does that sound normal to you? The teachers unions, all they promote groomers, and they're still suing Nicole Solis. They create and attract people that are there to prey on children. And then they set up provisions and laws where you can't fire them. Look at that. That teacher couldn't even raise his hand and say, hey, this seems odd. Why is that young 13-year-old boy who weighs 90 pounds, why is he have his shirt off? And why is he taking his pants off behind closed doors with a grown man? Nope. It's against Calabro and Val Lawson. No, it's against union rules. You can't ask that question. You can't say anything to anybody. It's so perverted. They are. They promote. I mean, I don't. You don't hear the word a lot anymore, but that's what they are. They promote degenerates. They promote these perverts. They promote these men and women that prey on their children. Their children. And then the teachers union, those kids, consenting adults. That's not a consenting adult. If you're a 14-year-old boy and you're a freshman, and the basketball coach that can control your future says, well, come in the closet, undress, and I'm going to do a little test on you. That's not, I disagree with Val Lawson and Mary Beth Calabro. That's not a consenting adult. That's a 13-year-old boy who is trusting the teacher/coach to protect him. Not the whole thing is so bizarre. Folks, this portion of the program, hey, remember, when disaster strikes, everything changes. Serve Pro of Providence. That's where they come in. They're fast, they're thorough, they're professional. Serve Pro of Providence. Remember, call them if you have a flood, you have water, or you have a fire. Serve Pro of Providence, 401-941-5500. This is who I would call if I had a flood in my basement, or we, God forbid, but had a fire. I'd call Serve Pro of Providence, 401-941-5500. Water damage, fire, mold, storm recovery. They'll bring your property back to life. Fast, thorough, professional. Serve Pro of Providence, 401-941-5500. When disaster hits, you need Serve Pro of Providence. Restoration, reliability, and results. Serve Pro of Providence, 401-941-5500. Well, folks, good afternoon. It's already a big news week with what's going on over at the Vatican and the death of Pope Francis. And then we also have the situation with the death of Senate President Dominic Ruggiero. So I think the next leader of the Senate, this is an important choice. I also hope the Republicans at the Rhode Island State House, and there's not that many in the Senate, but I hope they're going to be vocal. And I don't know who they're going to cut a deal with, but I would hope they'd go with anyone other than Val Lawson. I have a feeling that Senator Frank Chacon and Lawson, they're not both going to run because they're both labor. They're both in the same pew. So one will support the other. Maybe it is going to be that Senator Picone for Senator Frank Chacon. But whoever it is, I just hope the Republicans, I don't know enough about this Ryan Pearson. But folks, like when does the war on business end? When do you start to have someone that doesn't view business as like you gouge them? An elected political official that doesn't regard business and treat them like a tourist trap. What do I mean by a tourist trap? People get off the bus in Times Square. They see a place that's serving lunch. They walk in, and a cheeseburger is $28.50. That's a tourist trap. That's how they treat a lot of the business owners. Folks, this portion of the program is the weather is getting nice, and it's going to be a nice week. We're going to have temperature in the high 60s with sunshine. It's brought to you by Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Call Corey today at 401-283-9815. 401-283-9815. Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. They could handle your basketball court, tennis court, resurfacing a pickleball court. They can make your pavement look like new. They can epoxy garages and patios, decorative concrete flooring. They also seal coat driveways, crack filling, pothole repair. Call Quality Asphalt Seal Coating today. 401-283-9815. And they have a great social media presence. It's Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. We want to pass along our condolences. One of our sponsors, Watson Material, Sean, his dad passed away, great man, and our condolences go out to his family, Watson Materials. You can call and pay respects to Sean at 401-885-0600. Great guy, and I feel terrible for him. He lost his dad. So now I want to stay on schedule here, folks, but I also want to just make sure that we're not missing some of the news of the day, which has been quite a bit. Let me just see some of this. Sharon Lochte breaks Boston Marathon course record. I don't know what to make of that. Kenya, from Kenya, of course. The Kenyan runners. Let's see. I know Pope Francis, obviously. Let me just make sure there's no other news. There she is. Breaks the Boston Marathon course record. From Kenya, of course. See, I disagree with that. We'll talk to him. Dan McGowan writes, I've seen the Rhode Island Senate President Dominic Ruggiero evolve. Was it being a grandfather, adjusting to leading a chamber far more liberal than he was? I call it caving. I absolutely call it caving is what it was. Some of the people that are, you have a state senator, Tara Mack is in the Senate. You have that Bridget Valadair. Look at this is funny. Seth Magaziner, he has a photo op with the Warwick Fire Department. Did anybody that was there at this availability with him, did anyone ask him about the Pawtucket firefighters? That story's not going away. That story is not going away anytime soon. We're in the first inning with that. Absolutely the first inning. Let me just see. Okay, I don't see anything else with that. We're going to monitor the weather with Road Patrol Live. Had quite the busy weekend, so we're going to, I should say, monitor some of the weather on that, folks. I don't know the direction that the state senate. My state senator, like a lot of people, they're useless. But I'm on the school. Anyone, I don't know anything about this Ryan Pearson, but anyone has got to be better than Senator Frank Chacon or Senator Val Lawson. I don't think. Here's what you should know about Val Lawson. She is the enemy of President Trump. That's it. Enemy of President Trump. If the Trump White House were to weigh in on who's going to be not that they would, but president of the Rhode Island Senate, President Trump would say anyone other than Val Lawson and Frank Chacon, anyone other than them. And I see that Newport progressive doing something. She's already announced she's not going to run, which means she's cut a deal for herself in a position position of leadership. Folks, how much longer is the state going to be on the outside looking in? I'd like to see someone new maybe make a run. Maybe there's, I think, 5 Republicans. Maybe they could back some moderate Democrat who could make a run to be the new president of the Senate. It's possible. I don't know enough about it, but anything's got to be. You can't have business executives come into the state and immediately they're getting shaken down by labor who runs the state Senate. It can't happen. For this portion of the program, now as the weather gets nicer, maybe you were outside yesterday, maybe a lot of people like to have work done around either their home or property, or maybe for your business. J. Perry Paving, high quality, fair pricing, exceptional service. Why not get your driveway done? Call J. Perry Paving for a free estimate at 401-732-1730. 401-732-1730. Free estimate, letter J, J. Perry Paving. 401-732-1730 for J. Perry Paving. They're another one. I share their Facebook page. Now, Frank asked me about, he heard me talking about a summer camp for his grandchildren. Frank, you want to contact Kids Club on the Pike. Your grandkids are going to love it. Kids Club on the Pike. Birthday parties, any event that involves children, they're going to have a great time at Kids Club on the Pike. Call them at 401-443-5336. Now, Kids Club on the Pike, they are a birthday party venue. They do have before and after school care. They have preschool, but they also do summer camp. Reserve your space for your child or grandchild at Kids Club on the Pike today. 401-443-5336. They're easy to get to. They're right off of 295 on the Cranston-Johnson line. Maybe it's for a week. Maybe it's for 2 weeks. Maybe it's for a month. Maybe it's for the whole summer. Kids Club on the Pike. They're going to love it. 401-443-5336. Well, folks, good afternoon. Again, on this Monday, April 21st, we're going to monitor some of the news later as far as Road Patrol Live. The Karen Reed case kicks off, and then also they continue this case with this naked fat coach in North Kingstown. But obviously the big news of the day is the death of the Pope, and this will now set things in motion for a new Pope to be chosen. In some ways, listen, it is positive for the Catholic Church, all Catholics, to have the choosing of the Pope, and it's really, a worldwide figure, and it's a worldwide story. Leaders in all countries weighing in on it, including President Trump. Listen, enjoy this Patriots Day. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2:00 news. Everyone else, we're going to judge and monitor whether or not we're going to be out for Road Patrol Live. Enjoy this Monday.